Hillary Clinton and her camp leaked a chapter of her forthcoming book to Politico, and not just any chapter, the 34 pages dealing with Benghazi. The former Secretary of State hits back at her critics, decrying the, quote, regrettable amount of misinformation, speculation, and flat-out deceit by some in politics and the media. Jonah Goldberg, flat-out deceit by some in the media. Who would that be aimed at?
Oh, I'm sure some of my closest friends are in her crosshairs. Look, I mean, Hillary Clinton's has an incredible gift at playing the media. People seem to have forgotten that when her last book came out, she went on and played the victim everywhere, talking about how hard it was to be married to Bill and talking about the scandal and all of that sort of thing.
You don't think it was hard to be married to Bill?
No, look, I'm sure it is. At the same time, when the Washington Post wanted to ask her about some of the really interesting and controversial things she had to say about politics and the role of the Supreme Court and other things, Hillary Clinton refused to talk about the political subjects in her own book. She wanted to stay in the crosshairs as this sort of victim figure. Okay. She's doing something very similar. Her strategy throughout her time in public life has always been to take her weaknesses and turn them into strengths. Benghazi is a huge weakness. She has not been honest, and she's trying to turn it into a strength by saying anyone who disagrees with me is unpatriotic and trying to exploit the soldiers. And it's disrespectful and disgusting what she's doing.
Well, on that last point, Dana, and I'll let you push back if you want, Hillary Clinton also writes, I will not be part of a political slugfest on the backs of dead Americans. But doesn't leaking this chapter and some of the other steps that her team is taking amount to a media counteroffensive that is also, you could say, a political offensive?
Well, no, I think it's a defensive, and I think she essentially put up a shield and said, you know, she's drawing this line in the sand and saying she's not going to do it. I don't know whether she can sustain that, but I do think I do think it's a good effort on her part because, you know, once you get dragged down into that rabbit hole, you never get out of it. So I mean, I think I don't see why.
So you're saying she's justified. Jonah finds it disgusting. Well,
I'm saying she's shrewd. I mean, I agree with Dana that's a smart move.
Yeah. Right. And you don't find it disgusting at all.
Well, I mean, we're talking about it as a matter of a media strategy here. I mean, you know, I'm sure Jonah and I disagree on the merits of the whole Benghazi scandal, but you know,
in which her team, including former White House spokesman Tommy Vietor, are now involved in trying to get other Democrats on the page because obviously Benghazi is going to be talked about in this book. Let me turn to Lauren. Why did she decide, and she and her team, to leak this? And it was a leak.
She
to
just
Politico.
needs to get it out of the way, I think, so that when she goes on her book tour, she can drive the conversation and she isn't on the defensive. And I'm sure in the book she's going to lay out reasons why she's going to need what she's going to do in the future. Take a look at these magazine covers. Look at the Spy magazine, the Weekly Standard. Look at that face on the New Republic. I mean, you know, people do take their big shots at Hillary, and she needs to embrace that and engage.
Well, so you're making 2 points here. One is that by leaking this in advance, this becomes news. We all talk about it. Everybody writes about it. When the book comes out, I think June 10th is the publication date, she can kind of dismiss it as old news.
And she can manage it. She can manage to talk about the points she's going to make in the book, which, you know, will go to why she's going to run for president.
But your broader point, and one of the reasons we showed those magazine covers is, I mean, Hillary Clinton has been talked about, kicked around, praised, at odds with the press corps for the more than 20 years that she has been in public life. The New Yorker article this week says she's adopted a bunker mentality toward the media. My question to you is that justified?
Yeah, well, yes, of course. I mean, and I think a lot of politicians, and you and I definitely disagree on this, but a lot of politicians hate reporters. Bill Clinton aside, John McCain likes reporters, but, you know, it's an adversarial relationship. It's not supposed to be a good relationship.
I don't think it matters whether politicians hate reporters or not. I think they have to learn, and I got criticized for saying this, to deal with negative press, to deal with reporters. Yes, she has been, you know, tied to everything going back to the conspiracy theories about the death of her friend Vince Foster when she was First Lady.
Right, and being overweight. Right. I mean, she gets a lot of what people will call sexist comments, too, that she has got to learn how to deal with. And I don't think that they're sexist as much as they are issues that anybody who's going to run for president is going to have to deal with.
And some of this, Jonah, goes back to the tense relations that Hillary Clinton had in the 2008 campaign. And there was a lot, I mean, this, I think, hurt her coverage. She was very wary of reporters. Her team, I think, understandably felt that the press was tilting toward Barack Obama in those primaries. So does it matter whether the two sides get along if you're running for president?
I think it surely helps. Look, the press corps is basically like werewolves. Every full moon they must feed, and they're going to feed on somebody.
And there's a full moon every day, right?
But with Hillary, it goes back. You know, remember, I mean, you wrote about this when you were at the Washington Post. I mean, Hillary Clinton got her team of lawyers in the White House in the 1990s to drum up a report to attack Susan Schmidt's reporting on Whitewater. I mean, they've had this sort of attitude that the press is the enemy for a very, very long time, and I don't think at this point you're going to ask her to sort of get rid of that attitude.
In this New Yorker piece by Ken Oletta, Hillary's longtime spokesman, Philippe Reines, says the following. I think we can put it up on the screen. There's no such thing as straight reporting anymore. It's about views, eyeballs, clicks. The Clintons are good for business. With Hillary more than anyone, there's a premium placed on the sensational, the colorful, the inane, and that often comes at the expense of accuracy. What do you make of that indictment?
I don't know if it's Hillary more than anyone, but I mean, there's a fairly accurate diagnosis of all of us in the media. I mean, we're interested in things that readers want to read about, and you know, Barack Obama has disappointed the media in a way, in that he's kind of bland to cover. You know,
is that why we talk about Hillary every single day?
Yeah, I think we're eager to move on to the next thing, and you know, let's talk about Ted Cruz. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton.
Let's talk about Chris Christie's
exactly.
Right.
They're more interesting. So I don't think it has anything to do with ideology. I don't think it's Clinton personally. She's actually enjoying fairly good.
She's getting the best press of her life because, of course, she's not an official candidate yet. But just briefly, no such thing as straight reporting anymore in the Twitter age?
Come on. I disagree with that. Many people may not, but there are straight stories. The AP, there's a fire here. This is how many people died. These were the firefighters. So, yes, there is straight reporting, but in politics, it's mostly opinionated.
All right, I've got a hard break. Thanks to you, General Goldberg, Dana Milbank. Ahead on